minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank all of you for being here today. We appreciate this very much. I have to say that I'm pleased thus far that my colleagues have not made this a witch hunt, but instead I think they've asked some great questions and very, very fair questions. What I've heard, and I've been kind of in and out, but what I've heard is that you've acknowledged that you have a responsibility here and that you understand that. What I think I've also heard is that if you knew back then what you know now, you'd do things differently. And I think that's true for all of us in this profession, and I say that having practiced pharmacy for over 30 years. I'm going to ask you all to be very, very honest with me right now, because I'm concerned, as Dr. Burgess mentioned, about the role of the DEA. Now, we've already had the DEA before this committee, and I think we had, I think we kind of had it backwards. I wished I could have another shot at them, to be quite honest with you, to ask them some questions. But I just ask any of you, I assume all of you are compliant to ARCOS, that you're reporting. What does DEA do with that information? Do you know? I mean, and if you can be brief, because I got a bunch of questions. I ask you, Mr. Hamilton, do you have any idea what DEA does with that information?
No, I don't, sir. And I would also say, Congressman, some of this testimony, you see these pharmacies switch wholesalers back and forth.
Absolutely.
We don't see it before that happens.
Okay. Mr. Collis, do you have any idea what the DEA does with this?
No, we would like more feedback. We'd also like clearer rules on, for example, what constitutes a suspicious order.
Okay.
Very, very helpful. I know all of these gentlemen, and I think we'd be very interested in applying the rules.
Let me ask any of you, has the DEA ever come to you and said, do not send opioids to that pharmacy or to that clinic or to that hospital? Has anybody ever been told that by the DEA?
Not to my knowledge.
To my knowledge.
Have they ever given you any kind of directions or guidelines? You know, and I get it if they're outside of the realm that, you know, and obviously there's something going on, but I mean, aside from that, Mr. Collis?
Well, in 2007, we had a lot of discussion with them, and we developed our current controlled substance order monitoring program, and with the understanding that this was where they wanted the industry to go to. So I would say we do have regular consultation with them. We've worked with them on training programs. I wouldn't say it's, I would say, like all relationships, it can be improved and worked upon.
Right,
but
right.
It's not totally without communication and collaboration.
Let me ask you this. Obviously, you know the difference in a Schedule II drug and a Schedule III drug, and it's, the DEA schedules those depending on the tendency for addiction. When did hydrocodone become a C2 drug?
I do not.
I will tell you. It became a C2 drug in 2014. Why did it take so long, do you think, for the DEA to reclassify hydrocodone from a C3 to a C2 drug? Do you treat C2 drugs differently from C3 drugs? I know you do, because when I get them from you, or when I used to get them from you, I had to sign different documents. They came in a different box. They came sealed. Now, we're talking about all these pills that came here, and they weren't sealed, and they weren't on a different invoice or anything else. I'm just wondering, and again, I wish I could ask the DEA this, why did it take so long to reschedule hydrocodone? Now, you know, the last thing I'll say is this. Mr. Smith, you were involved in the situation in West Virginia, and this is, and I'm not taking up for you guys. You guys have a responsibility, and I believe you take that responsibility very seriously. And what I said earlier, I believe that if you had to do over again, you'd do some things differently. Mr. Smith, there was a Dr. Catherine Hoover, who accounted for 69% of all the prescriptions that were written during that time frame in this town in West Virginia. Do you know whatever came about with Dr. Hoover? You know where she is today?
I believe they referred to her earlier, and that she's either... Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks, Steve. I believe she was referred to earlier, and that there's either been disciplinary action taken with her, or she's left.
She fled to the Bahamas. She bought an island. 21 doctors. Dr. Burgess pointed out 21 doctors in the whole nation. Now, when you're sending drugs to a pharmacy and it's out of control, there's one of two things happening. Either that pharmacy's out of control and they're selling drugs out the back door, or there's a doctor who's out of control in that area. Has the DEA ever come to you asking you about a particular doctor?
Not to the best of my knowledge.
Nobody has.
We have received subpoenas regarding physicians.
Good. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that, and I hope that we will hear that. I'm sorry, I'm out of time, but again, we all have responsibility in this, all of us. There is no one solution to the opioid epidemic. All of us, pharmacists, distributors, manufacturers, physicians, all of us have responsibility, and I appreciate your role in that responsibility and you accepting that role and that responsibility. This is very important. You can help, and I hope that you are committed to help, and I believe that you are. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Gentlemen,